It was supposed to be the perfect trap. Congressman Ted Lieu had spent weeks preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, testimonies, and questions to expose what he considered the massive cover-up by the Trump administration regarding the Epstein files. On September 17, 2025, in the House Judiciary Committee room, with cameras rolling and millions of viewers, Lieu was ready. He launched a video clip of journalist Michael Wolff claiming that Epstein had shown him compromising photos of Trump with minors. Silence fell immediately. All eyes turned to FBI Director Kash Patel. This was the decisive moment. Either he would confirm the existence of evidence, or he would be caught off guard. Lieu had meticulously prepared for this moment, using his experience as a military prosecutor to trap witnesses during trials and hearings. The Epstein files weighed like an albatross for the Trump administration, which, after promises of transparency, had only released a fraction of the documents. Some Democrats and Republicans suspected that the real motive was to protect Trump. Lieu wanted to show that Patel was complicit in a cover-up. His strategy was simple: establish the existence of allegations involving Trump and minors, ask if such evidence was in the FBI files, and then use any evasion as proof of a conspiracy. The room was packed, with over 200 journalists monitoring every micro-expression, while social media was buzzing. 3 hours into the hearing, Lieu began his questioning, projected Wolff's clip, and let the silence linger, amplifying the impact of the allegation. Then, calmly and confidently, he asked the decisive question, "Director Patel, are there photos showing Donald Trump with girls of uncertain age? Yes or no?" It was a perfect, binary, and clear trap, impossible to evade without appearing guilty. But Patel did not react as expected. He did not seek to dodge or evade. His calmness, composure, and direct response thwarted Lieu's plan, completely transforming the dynamics of the hearing, leaving the congressman in an unexpected situation and revealing the effectiveness of a straightforward answer in the face of a meticulously prepared interrogation. The lesson was clear. Sometimes truth and clarity are enough to neutralize even the most sophisticated traps. The audience was tense from the start. Patel had just spent over 4 hours facing tough questions before the Senate Judiciary Committee the day before, yet he remained impassive, hands crossed, calm face, ready for Lieu's onslaught. The congressman, energetic and confident, had built his reputation on the ability to trap witnesses and extract embarrassing confessions. He intended to use this technique to unveil an alleged conspiracy involving Trump and the Epstein files. His strategy relied on courtroom logic: establish the existence of allegations concerning Trump and minors, confront Patel, and exploit any evasion as evidence of concealment. But Patel surprised everyone. When Lieu asked if there were compromising photos of Trump, Patel simply replied, "No," without hesitation or nuance. The room was stunned. Lieu had anticipated an evasion, not a direct denial. The dynamic shifted immediately, with Lieu now having to prove a negative, an impossible task. He tried to regain the initiative by mentioning unexamined documents and audio tapes from Wolff, suggesting that the FBI was not doing enough. Patel responded calmly and precisely, explaining that the criminal investigation into Epstein was closed, that the FBI's subpoena power was limited, and that action required an appropriate warrant. Lieu became slightly agitated, uttering an unusual curse in Congress, but Patel remained unflappable. Each of Lieu's attempts to create a scandal crumbled in the face of direct, factual, and logical responses. Even a mention of a supposedly compromising birthday letter was neutralized. Patel clarified that the FBI only investigated official complaints, not political speculation. By the end of his time, it was clear that Lieu had not achieved a dramatic twist. Patel had transformed what was supposed to be an explosive moment into a demonstration of mastery and transparency, highlighting the effectiveness of clear answers in the face of methodical attacks. The hearing revealed not only facts about Epstein and Trump, but also illustrated the importance of truth and clarity in contemporary political debate, showing how a well-prepared witness could turn the dynamics of a meticulously orchestrated interrogation. The audience at the Congress had begun under palpable tension, with every journalist, every spectator, and every committee member awaiting what was supposed to be a moment of spectacular political revelation. Ted Lieu, aware of the historical significance of this hearing on the Epstein files, had carefully prepared his strategy to expose Patel to a direct and irrefutable question regarding the existence of compromising photos of Donald Trump with minors. Lieu had staged the perfect scenario, using a video clip from journalist Michael Wolff as irrefutable evidence, claiming that Epstein had shown him such photos and that they would have been used to leverage Trump. The entire room fell silent as the video ended, and all eyes turned to Patel, anticipating the moment he would be trapped. Yet, Patel showed no signs of panic or frustration. He remained calm, hands clasped, observing Lieu with the poise and serenity of an experienced professional. When Lieu posed the decisive question, "Are there photos showing Donald Trump with girls of uncertain age?" he expected hesitation or an excuse that would serve as evidence of concealment. Instead, Patel simply and categorically replied, "No," without evasion or nuance. This unexpected response forced Lieu to improvise, as his plan relied on the idea that the witness would retreat behind bureaucratic phrases or ambiguous answers. Patel continued by explaining that if such evidence existed, it would have been revealed by previous administrations or by non-political FBI agents, and that the absence of such discoveries demonstrated the non-existence of a conspiracy to protect Trump. Every attempt by Lieu to reignite the attack was neutralized by Patel's methodical explanations of legal constraints and the limited role of the FBI in closed investigations, particularly regarding the agency's ability to issue subpoenas in the context of a closed case. This moment of the hearing highlighted an important political lesson. Meticulous preparation and supposed damning evidence are not enough against a witness who combines expertise, calm, and mastery of the facts, thus transforming what could have been a trap into a demonstration of competence and institutional credibility. The continuation of the hearing showed that Lieu's aggression and rhetorical mastery were not enough to unsettle Patel. Every question, even those prepared to force an admission, was redirected to a clear factual framework, exposing the legal and procedural limits of the FBI's actions regarding the Epstein files. Lieu attempted to increase the pressure by mentioning the unexamined material by the FBI and the supposed recordings of Wolff, suggesting that Patel might be overlooking potentially compromising evidence for Trump. Patel responded with clinical precision, explaining that the FBI had already sought the voluntary cooperation of the Epstein estate and that, without an active criminal investigation, its subpoena powers were limited. He also clarified that the mention of Trump's name in documents related to Epstein did not constitute evidence of a crime, emphasizing that no credible evidence of wrongdoing had been found in the files examined. This approach calmed not only the committee, but also the public and the media, who saw a director capable of directly addressing politically explosive accusations without resorting to excuses or evasion. Patel's performance transformed the dynamic of the hearing. Lieu, despite his meticulous preparation, found himself speculating on non-existent evidence and defending a collapsing accusation in the face of logic and facts. The implications were immediate and far-reaching. Conservative media celebrated Patel as the victor of the exchange, while even some Democrats acknowledged that their expectations had been unrealistic. The credibility of the FBI and its director was bolstered, and the perception of a potential conspiracy to protect Trump was largely neutralized. The hearing became a case study on the effectiveness of direct communication, mastery of facts, and transparency in a hostile political context. Patel demonstrated that the most effective defense was not evasion, but clarity and precision, and that a well-prepared witness could transform an aggressive attack into a demonstration of leadership and competence, permanently altering how congressional hearings would be perceived and conducted in the future. Despite his efforts to regain the initiative, Lieu quickly found himself confronted with the reality that Patel would not react like an average witness. Every question intended to trap the FBI director was skillfully thwarted by clear, direct answers grounded in verifiable facts. Lieu then addressed the infamous birthday letter recently released by the House Oversight Committee, which seemed to show Trump writing to Epstein with a suggestive drawing. The stakes were clear. If Patel agreed to investigate, he would potentially legitimize the credibility of the document. If he refused, the Democrats could present it as a refusal to pursue fraud. Patel, however, responded with pragmatism and balance. He clarified that any investigation into a potential forgery required a formal complaint, and that the FBI would not open an investigation based on informal suggestions made during a political hearing. This response, both factual and nonpartisan, completely neutralized the angle Lieu hoped to exploit. Every attempt by Lieu to circumvent this defense with technical questions or aggressive follow-ups failed, as Patel maintained the legal and procedural framework with calm and assurance, demonstrating that the authority of the institution and transparency could neutralize even the most aggressive questioning strategies. The journalists and spectators present quickly realized that the triumphant moment Lieu had anticipated had been transformed into a demonstration of institutional control and credibility. This shift in dynamics put Lieu in a delicate position, as he had to continue asking questions that did not yield the desired outcome, while maintaining an appearance of competence and mastery. Patel's performance began to be analyzed in the media and by political communication experts, who noted that his ability to respond directly while explaining the law and procedures had reduced the potential for sensationalism and strengthened trust in the process. This moment also marked a shift in how congressional hearings were perceived by the public. Authenticity and transparency became more powerful than calculated attempts to create scandals. Patel had shown that the best defense against an aggressive political attack was not evasion, but clarity and mastery of the facts. The consequences of the hearing were felt immediately in the political and media world. Conservative media celebrated Patel as a strategist capable of turning an attack against himself into a demonstration of skill, while Democratic commentators had to acknowledge that the lack of concrete evidence against Trump weakened their conspiracy narrative. Lieu, who had prepared this confrontation as a decisive moment, found himself defending his questions and speculating on potentially non-existent evidence. Every claim he made about unexamined files or supposed recordings became a demonstration of the absence of solid proof, illustrating that his plan relied more on the hope of finding a flaw than on established facts. Patel, on the other hand, was perceived as a leader capable of navigating a highly politicized environment while preserving the integrity of the FBI. His ability to calmly explain legal limits, the role of previous administrations, and the distinction between mentioning a name and proving a crime not only reinforced his credibility, but also that of the institution he led. In the days that followed, Democratic campaigns highlighting an alleged cover-up lost momentum, while the media began to nuance their narratives about Trump and Epstein. The hearing quickly became an example of effective communication under pressure and institutional strategy. It showed that success in politics does not solely depend on the meticulous preparation of aggressive questions, but also on the witness's ability to respond directly and confidently. Patel demonstrated that authenticity transparency, and knowledge of the legal framework can neutralize attacks that initially seemed unstoppable. The internal consequences for the FBI were also notable. Agents demoralized by public criticism regained confidence in their director and in the integrity of their investigations. The combination of competence, institutional loyalty, and clear communication became a model for how future witnesses would approach hostile hearings. For Lieu, the experience served as a lesson on the limits of gotcha tactics against opponents who master the facts and the rules. The Lieu-Patel exchange became a reference point in the teaching of political strategy. In the following weeks, the impact of the Lieu-Patel hearing continued to manifest in various areas of politics and public opinion. The perception of the FBI, often criticized in partisan debates, was bolstered by the demonstration of competence and integrity from its director. Conservative and moderate commentators praised Patel's clarity and precision, noting that his ability to respond directly and explain legal procedures had neutralized attacks from Democrats. Lieu, for his part, had to adjust his approach in subsequent hearings, indirectly acknowledging that the strict prosecutorial model, based on trapping and closed questions, was insufficient against well-prepared witnesses armed with solid facts. This experience influenced how lawmakers from all sides prepared their future questions, introducing a more nuanced approach where the sought information took precedence over the quest for a viral moment likely to create a sensation. The main lesson was clear. Public hearings are not merely arenas of confrontation, but also platforms where transparency and credibility can transform public perception. The press, expecting a spectacular scandal, had to adapt its narratives to reflect the established facts and the accuracy of Patel's responses, marking a notable shift in media coverage of such events. Scholars and experts in political communication began to analyze the exchange as an example of mastery of institutional discourse in a context of high political pressure. The hearing thus became a reference point for understanding how institutions can effectively defend themselves against attempts at manipulation or media distortion. Furthermore, it showed that even the best prepared attacks can fail if they rely on erroneous assumptions or insufficient evidence. The Lieu-Patel case was studied in courses on communication, political strategy, and constitutional law, highlighting the importance of precision, patience, and integrity in defending sensitive and controversial positions before the public and the media. By providing direct and well-structured answers, Patel demonstrated that credibility and transparency can surpass aggression. In the weeks following the hearing, the repercussions of the Lieu-Patel exchange were felt in the national debate on the transparency and effectiveness of institutions. Observers noted that Patel's performance had bolstered confidence in the FBI and provided a concrete example of what it means to respond under oath with accuracy, clarity, and courage, even in the face of questions designed to create a media scandal. Conservative media continued to praise Patel for his mastery, highlighting that his responses had transformed the political attack into a demonstration of competence and integrity. More nuanced progressive media had to admit that the evidence against Trump was insufficient and that the absence of a real scandal underscored the robustness of existing investigative protocols. Lieu, for his part, was forced to reevaluate his strategy. His future interventions became more open, aiming to obtain concrete information rather than provoke sensational moments, illustrating the lesson that an attentive public and well-prepared witnesses can counter gotcha tactics. At the same time, the hearing changed the perception of the relationship between federal institutions and the public. Patel's ability to clearly explain the legal limits of his authority, the existence of previous investigations, and the distinction between mention and criminal evidence allowed the public to better understand the internal workings of federal justice and the constraints faced by agency directors. This demonstration of transparency reinforced the legitimacy of the FBI and the perception of its independence, despite political polarization. The episode became a model for future government officials facing hostile hearings, showing that the best strategy is to respond factually, directly, and consistently, rather than seeking to avoid confrontation. Politicians and communication students studied the exchange as an example of crisis management, strategic communication, and maintaining institutional authority under pressure. By successfully navigating between transparency and caution, Patel had transformed what could have been a devastating trap into a demonstration of expertise and leadership, establishing a new standard for interactions between federal institutions and Congress. The impact on Ted Lieu was immediate and lasting. The congressman, who had hoped for a moment of triumph and a public demonstration of an FBI cover-up, found himself facing an inverted situation. His meticulously prepared accusations collided with facts and a clear explanation. He quickly realized that his strategy, based on assumptions and unverified evidence, had been neutralized by the simple fact that Patel spoke with authority and transparency. In the days that followed, Lieu attempted to defend his questions in the media, but his arguments seemed increasingly fragile. Each claim about unexamined files or potential evidence became an implicit concession that he had no concrete proof to contradict the FBI director. The experience marked a turning point in his political career, pushing him to adopt a more thoughtful and less spectacle-oriented style in future hearings. The story of this exchange also became a subject of study for political scientists and communication experts, who analyzed how control of information, preparation, and clarity of responses can surpass even the most meticulously prepared aggressive tactics. At the same time, Patel's credibility with the political class and the public was strengthened. The ability to calmly respond to hostile questions while explaining legal constraints and maintaining institutional neutrality not only protected the FBI, but also preserved the perception of fairness and integrity in handling sensitive matters. The hearing thus served as an example for training future officials and witnesses, showing that transparency and mastery of facts are more powerful tools than evasion or manipulation. The public, for its part, observed that the confrontation between an aggressive congressman and a calm, precise director highlighted the limits of unfounded political accusations and the difference between opinion, suspicion, and proof. The Lieu-Patel exchange became a symbol of how truth, expressed clearly and confidently, can surpass political maneuvers and durably influence the perception of the effectiveness and integrity of government institutions, while redefining the dynamics of future public hearings. The legacy of the Lieu-Patel hearing manifested in multiple political, media, and institutional dimensions. Patel's demonstration of competence and clarity not only reinforced the authority of the FBI, but also altered public expectations of witnesses in public hearings. Politicians and government officials became aware that aggression and entrapment are insufficient if the witness masters the facts, understands the limits of their authority, and speaks with confidence. Lieu's story, who had hoped for a sensational twist, became an example of the dangers of excessive anticipation and reliance on partial or speculative evidence. The narrative of the hearing was widely adopted in political communication schools and constitutional law courses, illustrating the power of a direct and methodical response to attempts at media or political manipulation. The media deeply analyzed the difference between mentions and evidence, the distinction between institutional transparency and sensational exposure, and the role of legal procedures in protecting the integrity of investigations. The episode also had a psychological effect on FBI agents and federal officials, who regained confidence in their leadership and the value of their work, seeing that the institution could withstand politicized attacks while remaining credible in the eyes of the public. For Lieu, this experience was formative showing him that strategic intelligence is not just about asking tricky questions, but understanding the nature of the witness and distinguishing solid evidence from speculation. The Lieu Patel hearing changed how Congress, the media, and the public approach political controversies and sensitive investigations, introducing a new standard where clarity, precision, and integrity surpass staging and bluster. Ultimately, the exchange became a pivotal moment in contemporary politics, a textbook case of how courage, mastery of facts, and transparency can transform a potentially devastating attack into a demonstration of competence and leadership. It left a lasting lesson on the power of direct responses and verifiable facts in modern politics. Subscribe, like, comment, and share to not miss any other scandal.